Hey guys, Jason here. I want to talk to you about taking risks. Risk taking insofar as ministry or life or business is of vital importance. Without risk, there is no reward. In the survival industry, we always say it's, you're always, it's a risk-reward game. Is it worth taking a risk to burn the calories that you may need to endure a situation? And is the reward for burning those calories great enough, to warrant it? So that's a common thing that we play with a lot. But recently I had an encounter with a few individuals actually that we were setting up in business, trying to get them operational and do some things together. And we just, on all of these people, it just hit a point to where they were unwilling to make the dive or make the next step, take the risk to go to the next level because, there's fear involved. Hey, we don't know if this is going to work out. We hate our life. We hate our business we're currently in. We hate everything that's going on in life and we're unhappy. But we would rather stay there and in what we know, in the muck and mire that we've struggled to scrape together, then go on and take a risk in maybe invest ourselves in something that we love, enjoy, and we know would ultimately bring us more freedom and happiness. I've never understood that mentality, but I've hit several people in a row here just within the past year that really are all about that mentality. And Hebrews 11:6 tells us that without faith it is impossible to please God. And taking risk is really a demonstration of faith. I know that I have taken great risks throughout my life. When I first started out, God called me to ministry. I was on a specific trajectory. My college was paid for. I was a student at Indiana University. I was going to knock out my basic 2-year degree, go on to my 4-year and get into the medical field. All that was pretty much taken care of for me. I was doing martial arts schools at the same time, running my martial arts classes and really just getting up there, and everything was just pointing in the right direction at that time. And then God punched my ticket and said, okay, it's time to come work for me. Well, the risk was I can stay in what I know and just be the nominal Christian and continue to go to church and serve and do all that, or I could just walk away from everything that I thought I knew and wanted to fully immerse myself in what Jesus wanted me to do. Well, I took that risk and I immersed myself 100%. I'm going to be in ministry and work for Jesus. So I gave it all up literally. Next morning, I'm out of IU. I'm in the first online Bible school I can get myself into. Closed down all my karate schools, had 4 at the time, and gave that up to my partner. And I showed up at church and started cleaning toilets. And I just continued to build up in that way. So that was a big risk, obviously. And for the next decade of my life, I progressed in ministry training, earned some Bible degrees, of course, had a lot of great adventures in ministry. And then after about a decade, I come to another time of risk. Another risk needed to be taken for me specifically, and I could continue, and I'm skipping over a great deal. I was offered $1 million for my Bible college. That was a risk I could talk about. Before I left the church, I was bought out. The offer was made to be bought out. And the Lord asked me the night before it happened, He said, do you want to be a millionaire? And I said, well, Lord, I'd rather win 1 million souls than have $1 million. And so that was it. That was my reply. I told Robin the next day. And she was like, yeah, that'd be cool either way. Something to that effect. And then I go into the church meeting. It was a Bible college meeting, and I was running a Bible college. We had a couple thousand students at that point and 12 campuses around the world. Everything was going good, and I was a really young president to be running a Bible college, but I was doing it successfully. And I was handed basically a form of documents with how much we were going to be getting, be bought out, $1 million, but I had to teach this way and according to these rules, this, that, and the other. Long story short, no thanks, walked away from it. and ended up losing that Bible college anyway. I actually closed it down. So big risk. What was the reward? Well, I don't know. I didn't have to be subjective to man's rules all over again. Fast forward. At the end of that ministry career, traditional church ministry, before we started outdoor ministry and what we do today, planted a church. All was going well. Had a new building given to us. We could have continued in that building, but God said to dust my feet. Not only did he tell me, but he told my wife, and then he told my uncle. So 3 confirmations within the span of a 20-30 minute time frame. I knew that I was not supposed to be in that area anymore, despite being handed a new building to have church services in. So again, risk, reward. I'm going to listen to Jesus every time. And so I made the jump, and we ended up doing outdoor ministry. In this venue in outdoor ministry, I started off strong, ended up working with one of the top schools in the country, helped build it into the top school in the country. I was instrumental in that for the years that I was there. And again, the Lord comes and says, hey, do you want to continue down this path, or do you want to go back and do what I told you to do in the first place? Because this is where you've messed up. All right, Lord, no problem. I'll quit. And so I walk away. Risk versus reward. What's the reward? Jesus, every time. I'm being obedient to Jesus. And what has happened because of that obedience over all those decisions have led up to where I have absolute freedom. We can do pretty much whatever we want. We are financially blessed. I'm free from anyone telling me what to do in this regard. And I'm free to be obedient and raise my children in the fear and admonition of the Lord. You know, to instill in them faith. We've been able to homeschool all 4 of our kids, employ all 4 of our kids full time. They're not making as much as they'd like, but they make enough to get by. Our family as a whole is really walking in the blessings of faith, you know, that was really put on my shoulders as the head of the household to make those decisions. So obviously I've talked to Robin about everything, but sometimes it was after the fact, more often than not. And that's the thing. Risk is really part of being in ministry and part of any explosive growth or blessing that you want in your life. You got to count the cost. You know, there is always some sort of cost. You can have worldly riches and blessing, or you can go after the spiritual things. The Bible tells us in the Gospel of Matthew that if we lift up the name of Jesus and seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, that all these things would be added unto us. What are all these things? Everything else we think about. We're also told in the Gospels that we don't need to worry about what we're going to eat or what we're going to wear, because God clothes the flowers of the field and feeds the birds, and we're much more important than them. Why worry about these things? That's what the pagans worry about. We're not to worry about these things. So I decided years ago that I would not worry about those things, because I knew that God had that handled. And at no point, even being broke as we were, did we ever go without food or shelter or our basic needs at any point in our lives. We always had enough. It wasn't what we wanted, wasn't in the measure we wanted at times, but we had it, and we made do with what we had. And we began to see the blessing for what that was. And we learned obedience through those times of suffering and hardship. Not that it was difficult by our standards here in America. Any other place in the world, we would be super rich still. But that said, by the standards that we understood, you know, it was difficult times for us. I would just really encourage you to have faith, absolute faith, the gift of faith. You know, pray that you receive that from the Holy Spirit so that you're able to make those decisions in those, sometimes it's a snap judgments you have to make, you know, to where you have to chase after those demonstrations of faith and take the risk in the moment to follow Jesus. Who cares about everything else. You know, are you going to lose your job? Who cares? You're going after peace, happiness, obedience to the Lord, abundance. Happiness is really a decision away. It's really, truly that simple. You don't want to look at it that way because it may mean a change in job and a period of hardship. Guess what? That's okay. You have to learn to be at peace with that, because that's part of the risk-taking process. That's also part of the process of having faith in someone greater than yourself. So be at peace with the repercussions of those decisions regarded to taking risks and to making those leaps of faith. Because in the end, God orders our steps, and the steps of the righteous man are ordained, and we know where we're going and who we're going with if you're in right standing with the Lord and you have a relationship with Christ. So as long as you have that, if God be for you, who on earth can be against you? No one. So don't fear, anything in this world. Be at peace and move on and go after the things that God's called you to go after. So anyway, I hope this has been of help to you. Take some risk this week. Share your faith with somebody new. Share your testimony with somebody you haven't shared it with before. Take small leaps of faith, demonstrations of risk, and then evaluate your life. Where do you need to take more risks for the kingdom of heaven? Evaluate yourself and get right with God. Be blessed.